Hi Nicole, this is Carmen. This is my weekly reflection on the content from your lecture and the Mullen article, and then tying concepts from those two from our previous content that we've had up to this point. One of the first things that struck me was from that opening exercise that you had us do, and a question that you asked towards the end. How do we build evidence from our intuitive thoughts? And that got me thinking about how I do that. I rely a lot on, for evidence building, for my intuitive thoughts based on my own personal experience, my own personal history. And then that led me to think about the conceptualization of critical theory in the ontology epistemology video that was posted on D2L a couple of weeks ago, talking about how that research paradigm, as opposed to the positivist paradigm, really takes into account history, personal history, and macro history around, race, class, gender, power, privilege, and specifically in the United States, but it could be anywhere, right? And so that, for me, is how I would answer that question, which then leads me to think about my own privilege, my own white privilege, my privilege as a social worker, my privilege as a graduate student, and the responsibility, I think, that comes with that privilege, comes with my background, comes with my knowledge, to frame my research questions in such a way that recognizes that not everyone's experience is my experience. Like, how I have experienced my day to day, in this day, in large part is based around my privilege as a white person in the US, right? So as a researcher, I feel I have a responsibility, and I am definitely interested in finding out truths, plural, not just one truth, because I just don't think that exists, right, based on what I just said. And so that's kind of where I keep going back to. And so when I'm thinking about, the research proposal that we're putting together and the topic areas that I'm interested in, that is how I frame that. And then, I'm interested in finding out truths. I'm interested in finding out what's there. I'm also actually more interested in finding out what's not there. Like, what's hidden? Who's been erased? Why? Who said? All those kinds of questions that I think parallel really nicely with the critical practice perspective. So that was the first thing, and that kind of ties into your concept that you introduced in lecture as well, around participatory action research, which is driven by those most affected by fill in the blank research topic, right? And I really do believe it's true too that how I interact with the world impacts the research that I do, and vice versa, right? And that was also a note I took from your lecture. And then going over to Mullen, as he was going through the history, kind of giving us the history of how research has been done specifically by social workers, I found this part really interesting, that there was a time, I think in the 70s, where studies by, the social workers, there was an expectation that social workers would both be in practice and in theory, both practice and in research at the same time, and that the research and the topics were really driven from their experiences, right? And their clients' experiences, probably more importantly, right? And that the model that we have today, where research is driven primarily by faculty, and they're driven by the priorities of the funders, right? What do the funders want? And who are those funders? Who are those people? And as we find in from the Gary Gray art, or the Gary Gray video, those funders are often sit on the boards of major corporations, right? And so I'm starting to see and understand that this is a part of a much larger picture, and those corporations then, of course, are tied to neoconservative white supremacist capitalism. And so there you have it, right? It's all there. And I wrote a short article for class last term, and where I wrote it's all about the money, and I just honestly I keep returning to that phrase over and over and over again. Um, and um, that also leads me back, that history piece, talking about just thinking about problem formation, and what are the kinds of questions I'm asking based upon the research paradigm that I choose, and are the people who participate in my research, are they truly participants? Are they truly my partners? Or are they my participants? Are they research subjects? That language then turns into discourse, which then influences the questions that get asked and the results that come from the work, right? Um, and then, yeah, going back, I think for me, honestly, like reading the Mullen article, kind of, going over your lecture notes, I just kept going back to that Gary Gray video. It was like, and I mean, honestly, like that his topic, like his research topic at Harvard, like I am so incredibly interested in that. I found his approach fascinating, like 1,001, individual practice studies, or interviews of professors and scientists and researchers all across the country. Um, and for me, on an academic level and just in a lot of other areas of my life, integrity and honesty is kind of a big theme. Those are big themes for me right now. Just getting really clear on who I am as a social worker, getting really clear on who I am as a student, um, as a person, as a daughter, as a friend, on and on and on. And there's a friend I had that used to say that, you know, that his integrity was compromised with one small inaction followed by another small inaction followed by another small inaction. And I think that that's what Gary Gray is talking about when he was talking about the scientists that just basing it on their funders' priorities, they just start tweaking their first their thought process and then their questions just a little bit and just a little bit and just a little bit. And I think like that ties back to that exercise, quite frankly, that you had us do at the beginning of class. Like I need to be fully awake and aware and present, and I need to be taking care of myself so I can show up to the party, to your class, not the party, your class, fully engaged, ready to go, with my critical thinking skills on, ready to get through some of this stuff. And if my mind is clouded by, this is my opinion, if my mind is clouded by, you know, if my research is directly affected by, whether or not I can put food on the table, then that's an issue, right? So, anyhow, those are my thoughts. I will upload this to YouTube like I did last time, and I will see you on the flip side. Thanks so much. Bye bye. Have a good night.